this year is Inclusive Growth with Resource Security. We request Mr. Gautam Ray, the Chairperson of the Energy and Environment Committee of the Bengal Chamber, to deliver the opening remarks and take the session forward.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Good afternoon, rather. Has thought it prudent to organize this 13th Environment and Energy Conclave, and definitely we are sure that it will bring newer value at the forum of the annual Environment and Energy Conclave. The theme this year we have thought inclusive growth with resource security, and definitely the emphasis will be on collaboration. We are very glad to inform you that United Kingdom is our country partner this time. And this year's conclave has been considered as one of the run-up events to COP26. Although the economic crisis what we are facing worldwide, India is also no exception. But with the unlocking, there has been a resurgence also. But not linked to it, way back in 1995, in view of sustaining the ecosystem, a conference of globally concerned parties, COP, was held in Berlin. Subsequently, every year, one meeting in some part of the world is held to throw new light on sustainability. COP21 was held in 2015 in Paris, which has spoke for holding temperature rise within 2 degrees of that of pre-industrial period. India accordingly has a firm commitment to augment green power, and this year COP26 will be held in Glasgow, where the world leaders will express their views on climate change. Keeping this in the backdrop, this year our focus for this forum was for international policy advocacy towards climate change, bringing in inputs from government, business, think tanks, academia, and also youth. Especially, we have given a slot for a youth forum, keeping in mind that let the next generation also express their view on sustainability. The recommendation of this conclave would be submitted to COP26 leadership with the help of British Deputy High Commissioner in Kolkata, with whom the Chamber works very closely. TERI has always been a partner to this conclave traditionally. We proudly present to you Kolkata Virtual Sustainable Action Dialogue of WSDS in 2021. India, as you know, has an ambitious plan to adapt the renewable sector. Out of this 371 gigawatt installed capacity, today RE is about 133 gigawatt. And there is a definite plan for prospective rise of existing 5% to 21%. Given in this situation, for a better collaboration and for exchange of views, this conclave we have thought of, and we are glad to announce that there will be participation from Asia Pacific speakers from Australia, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and Indonesia. As a token of our paying back to the society and nature, Chamber has pledged to its members and stakeholders on occasion of the conclave to plant trees after the havoc impact of super cyclone Amphan in eastern region, primarily in West Bengal. With their support, I am glad to inform that more than 250,000 trees are being planted in Bengal and Jharkhand, especially in industrial regions. I understand sustainability is based on inclusive growth, collaboration, and the circular economy with more renewable input. In India, in spite of the pandemic, we have learned to live differently. We should be bold enough to take the challenge of sustainability, beat the menace, and move to a brighter world with brotherhood and camaraderie. We have today a video on tree plantation by the members and the stakeholders, and I would request for that presentation. Thank you. Thank you. In fact, we are expecting much more such participation will take place in the future. Today we have with us Sri Rajnath Ram, Advisor Energy Niti Aayog, Government of India. And as sustainability discussions should start with the policy advocacy part, we all are eager to listen to Mr. Ram on the initiatives and the policy issues. I would request Mr. Rajnath Ram to speak on.
Yeah. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, the slide is not getting displayed. Next slide, please. Okay. Yeah. So let me begin with the context here that there are the five basic elements of life. And we say the Panch Mahabhut, namely the land that is called the Asthal or the Prithvi, the water, the Jal, air, that is Vayu, the fire, the Tej, and the space, that is Okas. Almost all these needs, all these are related with some kind of economic activities and which are all dependent on the energy. If we uh, go back the 200 years ago, all the human needs for the energy were fully met by the renewable sources. But now we are landed up with the more than 80% of world energy consumptions, which is coming from the fossil fuels. And that's a finite and non-renewable sources. World's almost 1/4 of the energy consumption is for the manufacturing sector only. So there remains a need for a close link between the energy and the economy for a comprehensive analysis to ensure inclusive growth and minimize the economic loss. Next slide, please. And that's where the energy data has to play a crucial role. Next slide, please. Yeah. So data is a really, no, go back to, yeah. Data is a really critical enabler to formulate the energy policy and then drive the actions, the crisis planning, and the performance evaluation of the programs and the policy. The data management helps to plan for an efficient use of resources in a targeted and a structured manner. Data, if you have the data, the well-structured data, you can easily supervise for all the different energy-related activities. That can improve the governance process. That can provide a competitive advantage for anybody. And that's data is really, really critical for the industry to plan for the economical and the efficient production. And the data also support the analytical tool and the market analysis. And for the country, we must emphasize on the overall demand supply balance. Man, that is very, very critical. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the various agencies who have been involved in India for the data management are the coal controller organizations who maintain the data pertaining to the coal reserves, productions, grade of coal, demand, consumption points, calorific value, pricing, state-wise reserves, positions, historical data on the various counts. Then petroleum planning analysis is done on a technical wing of the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. All petroleum related data and the natural gas, even LNG, export, import, marketing of petroleum products, state-wise retail pumps, customer base, all these data are being maintained by them. Director General of Hydrocarbons, that's all another wing of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. They maintain data with respect to the upstream sector, the hydrocarbon resources, particularly the oil and gas exploration and the production. And they also manage the new exploration licensing policy contract regime, where the Indian sedimentary basins are given to them, to the private players for the hydrocarbon exploration and production. Then they also maintain the data on the CBM, then the various technological details on gas hydrates and historical data. Then Central Statistical Organization, that is MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. They maintain the data related with with respect to almost all these sectors, and with respect to the energy, they come out with the energy balance, and they are the only agency in the country which integrate all the 5 energy ministries, and they come out with the consolidated data on the energy with the supply demand balance. Then we have the Central Electricity Authority under the regime of the Ministry of Power, and they also have a lot of data related with the power sector, data on thermal, hydro, power system, grid operations. And this very recently, I think just 1 year from now, they have added another wing of renewables. In fact, that data for the renewables, like they want to create a separate wing for that to maintaining, because India has a huge plan of for clean energy transition and particularly renewable energy penetration. So there are challenges also because we run with the 5 ministries: the Ministry of Coal, Power, Petroleum and Natural Gas, New and Renewable Energy, Department of Atomic Energy, to deal with the energy. So I feel that somewhere the lack of coordination really drives some of the gaps in the energy data, and sometimes it becomes very critical on the convergence of the data, particularly like recently we have just gone a discussion with the Ministry of Power, and then the MOSPI and the Ministry PSE. The data on the import dependencies, there was some divergence on the calculation aspect with related to the import dependence. PPAC assumes some different assumptions, and the MOSPI has some different assumptions. And within the same organization, same government bodies, we have a different data set. So that's another critical area we need to focus. And a lot of crucial energy data is still we see that in a physically scanned and format. So that needs to be something looked upon. There are many gaps in the energy consumption data because it's more difficult to gather this data. There are also limited mandate of the government institution to disseminate the data to the general public. So we have just taken this initiative just to harmonize the different data points, and then also come out with the certain solutions and certain initiatives have been taken. Please change this slide. I think next slide, please. I think I'm more. Yeah. So with the recent initiatives, the formation of National Statistical Commission and the National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy, but that also need a very strong discussion and interministerial consultations to devise and develop this data platform. Next slide, please. So Niti Aayog has taken some initiative to strengthen the Indian energy data management system in the country. Next slide, please. So this is the broad 4 category we have identified, and because that's the basic principles, we think that for a robust energy data management system in the country, to establish a common core principle and standards for managing the data in India. Even within the our intergovernmental organization, we find there are the standards for collecting the data, then also standardization of format, standardization of definitions. These are somewhere we find some problem. So that's cohesion is required. Enhanced coordination is very, very crucial because we need to coordinate we need to coordinate with the all ministries seamlessly, and that will somehow will converge to the robust energy data management system in India. We have to also adopt the newest technology, and we have to enhance the efficiency for the data collection and reporting, the data quality, and then some kind of institutional setup for strengthening the data and reconciling the data. Niti Aayog constituted 8 subgroups, 4 in the demand sector and 4 in the supply sector. For the demand sector, that basically the major sector were included transport, industry, buildings, and agriculture. And we made them responsible, the joint secretary level officers in the government, as a chair of the subgroup. And these subgroups have submitted their reports, both for the supply and the demand sector. And the subgroups have clearly identified the various data gaps and have provided their recommendations for improvement in the data management system in the country. But they have also at the same time has suggested that institutional strength and somewhere the data is lacking, we need to have a periodical survey where these are some of the recommendations they have made. Next slide, please. These are the 3 initiatives we have undertaken. India Energy Dashboard that we are developing. The first version was launched in 2017. Now we are going with the advanced version where we are collecting all sort of data and with less human intervention. And we are just trying that automation can be done, and it can be also linked with the API. India Energy Security Scenario, this is another tool Niti Aayog has developed for 2047, keeping in mind that 100 years of India's independence, what would be the energy scenario for the country. And this tool is a very robust and it's a bottom-up approach model where we update this tool on a frequent basis, but last updation was held only in 2016. There was some problem with respect to the time horizons because this was the exercise started way back in 2015 before the formation of the Niti Aayog, because at that point of time there was a 5-year plan exercise. That planning exercise has gone. So data was also planned accordingly for the 5-year of intervals of times. But now we are restricting this model for providing this yearly data updates and then projections for the future. We have also come out with a GIS-based energy map, and we involve ISRO for developing this GIS-based energy map for the country. And this tool would be specifically used for geospatial planning for any energy resources or any energy installations need to be planned, and this tool would be helpful to identify if there are energy installations and the system are in place. So that will help. And this would be user ID and password protected, and access as of now it will be given only to the nodal officers from the ministries. Next slide, please. So I broadly I have already informed it about the Niti Aayog India Energy Dashboard. The Prayas Energy Group has supported us. The basic objective of this was that if all forms of energy are maintained at one place, basically the data, it can be used by researchers, policymakers, business strategies, formulators, and performance evaluation of the energy sector program organization. And that will help to a kind of evaluation of energy sectors, and also it will make the policymakers easy access of data, and the easy planning of the policies. So the version 1 was launched in 2017. Now we are working to version 2, as I've already mentioned, that it should be API linked, and would also include the demand side data, because as of now we have just captured the supply side, but that data is easily available. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot of the dashboard, which provides that from the supply side and left side, you see the supply side, the various resources, and the right side, you see that the other consumption sector. Like the domestic coal, you have the supply from the domestic sources as well as the imported coal. And then you should see the block of coal. And from the coal, that block, how this resource is distributed for electricity generation, and then the other industrial uses. And then on the downstream side, you see the various sectors that are consuming. So this is the Sankey diagram, which provide you from the flow of energy from the sources till the consumer end. Next slide, please. Okay, so next is the GIS map. This is a sort of a snapshot for the GIS map we have developed with the ISRO, and the basic objective is geospatial planning for the country. So this is in advanced stage. We are going to launch it very soon. Next slide, please. This is the India energy security scenario. This is the web tool. This is a snapshot how it look like. In the front page, you can just see that what are the energy demand, where the energy supply, and then you see the another graph of import dependence. So here it's a two platform. One is the web tool, one is the detailed Excel model, and both can be, I mean, detailed Excel model can be downloaded. And if somebody find that the assumptions and the data taken are not correct or transparent, and if they feel that the projections could be like whatever the way they think are, so they can change the model, they can input their data, and they can see the results. So it's a downloadable tool, and one can play with the numbers and they can generate their own scenario. So that is the objective of this India energy security scenario. But the overall objective is to have a more informed debate on the energy scenarios, so that if a researcher can play with the different numbers, they can come up with the different ideas, different suggestions, and that can be incorporated and formulated in the policy. Next slide, please. So this was the just energy security scenario. We are just under the finalizing it, and which incorporates the various parameters, the short and long-term energy investment planning. It is a very guiding tool where all the four aspects, like accelerating the clean energy transition, you can track the transition, how it is taking the shape, and then end user of India energy landscape. I mean, but this also provides you the implication on the cost parameters, how much the system would cost if you are going to a certain kind of scenarios. And it also indicates the land implication, land, and then the GHG emission. So it's a very rich tool which provides the overall framework of the energy demand and supply, and overall the impact on the economy. Next slide, please. So this is what I have already mentioned. You can see the energy imports, GHG emission, cost to the economy, water requirement, the land requirement, because now even the power, thermal power, if you are going to install, I mean, that's a water intensive. So how much water would be required, what with the completion, and those kind of things need to be, I mean, one can see from the tool. So this is the overall objective I could see. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. The overall objective of the data management should be like that. That's what we are following the principle to establish a common core principle for ADM for all organizations involving in the ADM, standardize the definition, classification of data, data quality, enhance coordination, and then maximize the use of existing data, improve data quality, and there's some kind of institutional mechanism to reconcile data for the different sources. Data on energy consumption, non-commercial energy sources is currently inadequate, so collecting such kind of data, etc. Next slide, please. Adopt best technology available to increase efficiency in data collection, the common format for similar data, automated data, better data integration, informed dissemination, customer-oriented data formats, use of modern technology, and that's already we have mentioned, and maximize the effectiveness of the staff and center. I mean, that's also, we have also inbuilt a training for this this exercise, and we worked with the all the data management agencies, and in the Niti Aayog itself we conducted a workshop for how to manage the data for the country, and we involve international energy agencies to impart this training, etc. So this is overall from my side. Thank you very much for patient hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Ram. It's really, I mean, very enriching, and nobody can deny that data analytics and artificial intelligence, and ultimately the collection of data, standardization, coordination, what you have spoken of, are of extremely importance. With this, I would request Mr. Mohit Bhargav is with us. He is the head of Renewable Energy Division and CEO of NVVN NTPC Limited, the largest power producer in the country. We are very proud of NTPC. He will speak on social and environmental growth as core business strategy. I would only request speakers to limit their, because we have to continue the session one after another. So, Mr. Bhargav, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. are focusing on green and sustainable growth. And India is at the center of this global energy transition and is now a major renewables hub. Mr. Roy mentioned about renewable capacity of about 130 gigawatts. Out of that, I'd like to point out that variable renewable energy is about 87 gigawatts. And this is a capacity which has come up over the last few years only. Indian government has set a very ambitious target of achieving 175 gigawatts of variable renewable capacity by 2022. And that has been further increased to an even more ambitious goal of 450 gigawatts of renewables by 2030. Probably many of you may not be aware that even in these unprecedented times with COVID, renewables was probably one of the sectors which escaped relatively unhurt due to the swift action taken by the government around the world. Our Indian government has ensured that must-run status is accorded to renewables and insulated the industry from compression in demand due to the lockdown. This also ensured that at all times, renewable sources were allowed to generate power and the other sources were asked to back down. While renewables have been the preferred choice of electricity generation everywhere, it does have one drawback, and probably all of you are aware of that. It's intermittency. That's why we call it the variable renewables. Innovative storage solutions are one way to solve this problem. We can use batteries, pump storage, or any other storage options to store power and maintain grid stability. While pushing local manufacturing of solar modules is definitely a step in the right direction, we should probably focus on expanding plans to other parts of power sector value chain, such as batteries, components, and solar module components as well, wafers, ingots, and so on and so forth. As per the recent reports of Bloomberg NEF, BNEF, batteries are also becoming increasingly affordable. Prices have dropped by over 80% in the last decade and are expected to drop further in the coming years. Apart from storage, the other way to make renewables firmer is to venture into green hydrogen. Disruptive innovations and technology will be critical to propel RE's growth. As a responsible corporate, we at NTPC have a plan to add about 30 gigawatts of renewable by 2030. And we intend to maybe increase it further depending on how the trajectory goes. Considering the issues connected with pumping large amounts of RE power into the grid, NTPC also intends to convert the excess power from the green sources to produce green hydrogen and use it for various upstream and downstream applications like hydrogen-based fuel cell electric vehicles, productions of chemicals like methanol, wherein hydrogen along with captured carbon dioxide can be used to produce methanol, ammonia, and other chemicals, energy storage and re-electrification by blending hydrogen into the natural gas pipeline. I must tell you here that hydrogen is one of the important pillars which NTPC is pursuing, because we feel that when 450 gigawatt of RE power will come into the grid and the overall grid size may be around 700 to 800 gigawatts, it would be much better to pump molecules rather than electrons into the grid. And molecules are what hydrogen is. So we should use electrons to produce hydrogen and supply it to the industries or the areas which need it. Other than going green through the renewables way, NTPC is also has been the forerunner in adopting environment-friendly technologies. Our focus has been on green as well as clean power. So when we have a large coal-based fleet, we are moving ahead and making a commitment so that we are retrofitting our plants to meet the new emission norms. We have already awarded flue gas desulfurization packages for most of our existing fleet, and we are also taking action to meet the NOx and the particulate matter limits. On the other side, coal-based plants have ash as a byproduct, and we are committed to use 100% ash. We are looking at the possibility of supplying ash to industries which need it, like cement and building. And we are also looking at developing in-house technologies to convert ash to sand and cement. Waste to energy is another area where NTPC is focusing as part of circular economy. We are already working on setting up waste to energy facilities in different cities, including Delhi. We're also procuring agro-residue-based pellets to co-fire in our power plants along with coal. We also have a separate business development arm, which has been exploring setting up electric charging stations on a large scale. We strongly believe that ultimately transport will also move away from ICE to electric vehicles, whether it is battery operated or hydrogen operated. NTPC, as a responsible corporate, has a very important role to play in leading the way towards a new energy economy, and we are completely geared in spearheading the way towards India's energy transition. As you can see, NTPC's growth plans are now firmly centered on green, clean, and sustainable power solutions, including renewables, emission control, waste to energy, electric mobility, and green hydrogen. We are doing this with the firm and full knowledge that sustainable growth is the key to our future. With this, I'd like to conclude, and I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude for allowing me to be part of this dialogue. And thanks to the Bengal Chamber of Commerce for coming up with socially responsible themes every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to Mr. Bhargav. You have correctly highlighted some of the very important issues like sustainability is the basic strategy and the circular economy, what you are speaking of. In fact, the intermittency of the renewable energy can be duly supplemented with storage. You have rightly mentioned. Technology-driven lithium-ion cell having higher charge density and retention capacity will have good business potential in India. EV market in India is also opening up, and definitely NTPC being the front runner, we are all looking to your project, your plan, so that it can really add value to the sustainability program of the country. Now I would request Mr. Ghanachand Prasad. He is the Joint Secretary, Ministry of Power, Government of India. He is with us. He has agreed to give, in spite of his busy schedule, some time with us. I would request Mr. Prasad to give your special address.
Good afternoon, everyone. And at the outset, let me thank Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Mr. Gautam Roy for inviting me to this address. As rightly said, it is the topic selected by Bengal Chamber of Commerce is quite apt, and it is the need of hour. You rightly said that there is a deep crisis which was caused due to pandemic. But I think we are all geared up to turn this as an opportunity and not take it as a setback, as a crisis. I think we should remove the word crisis from our mind and try to take it as an opportunity and try to build, as our Honorable Prime Minister always keeps on saying, that any crisis can be easily turned into an opportunity. And that is how we are being driven now by the Atmanirbhar Bharat, the slogan that has been given. And I think industry is all geared up to align themselves to this kind of a challenge which has been thrown open by the Honorable Prime Minister. It should not be taken as only coming from a Prime Minister, but it should be the responsibility of each and every individual of the country to be really self-reliant, and we feel proud in making it as a country specific and try to progress on that manner. Inclusive growth and resource security. If we see from the energy side, and which have been captured to some extent to the data analytics by Mr. Rajnath Ram from NITI Aayog. In fact, we have already been, we as a Ministry of Power, from the power sector side, we have been in close sync with NITI Aayog and trying to see that the data part gets integrated in a manner which is required for the researchers and others. In this endeavor, we also have developed National Power Portal, and in fact, the kind of disparities in the data which we used to have it earlier has been tried to resolve, and the National Power Portal has been already launched, and each and every day there is some addition to this portal. Some more data is being put into this portal. Regarding the security part and the resources, I think all of us are aware that we are mostly still dependent on coal. Gas availability issue continues. Hydro, because of high cost of generation, we are not able to take it forward in a pace and in a manner in which we should have done it. RE, fortunately, which started at a very, very high cost in the initial years, the prices have become quite competitive. And that is how we are adding more and more renewables and trying to encourage renewables into the entirety of generation, particularly solar. Pandemic. To my understanding, I think we'll again bounce back. There had been gaps, and if we see the data of April, we were 23% less than the last year, same period, which now in August, slowly and slowly that was reduced, and in August we are now moving towards positive, a little positive, and yet to see that we move to the pre-pandemic era, and we reach to that demand growth scenario. Research and development should be key focus again to the industries, and that calls for some new product. And in fact, if we try to see the optimality part of it, and in all the arms of the power sector, whether it is generation, which takes from the industry point of view to the equipments, or whether it is pollution control equipments like FGD, etc. Transmission equipments, distribution, a lot of scope is still there in distribution, whether we take it from the smart grid or the SCADA, smart metering, or any kind of innovations that we try to pump into the distribution sector. It is still less, because we need to make our distribution sector viable. Leading to communication. In fact, by and large, every year we have seen that the penetration of communication in the power sector has been increasing with automation going into it. Generation, transmission at a larger extent till the load dispatch centers, it is already automated. But down the line towards the DISCOM and the consumer side, it is yet to be done. And that calls for some more automation towards the distribution sector, the consumer participation, and the visibility of the consumer, the way the consumer is being serviced, and the consumer interactions vis-a-vis the company's DISCOMs needs to be improved, so that the consumer feel as a part of the system, not felt as if they are being administered by the companies. So a kind of communication system which is more and more consumer friendly needs to be evolved, and that may lead to better service being offered to the consumer. So I think the next focus should be the consumer centric in the power sector, and the revival of the DISCOMs and the viability of the distribution system. In fact, if these two arms of the power sector we are able to tackle, probably we will be able to ensure the entire viability of the entire sector, because the cash flows starts from the consumer, then to DISCOMs, and who in turn pays to everyone, whether it is generator, traders, transmission companies, or even to the equipment manufacturers in turn. Resources needs to be optimized. Resources are never in plenty. And that is what we have seen, in fact, starting from the earlier days when we had state resources. It was being treated as a state resource. We moved to the regional optimization, and recently we had moved towards the national resource optimization. And from 1st of April, 2019, when we tried to see that the gains which can occur if we try to optimize the resources at a national level, it was introduced through a national level merit order, which we call it as security constraint economic dispatch. And this economic dispatch led us to a saving of something like 1,200 crores per year. And this is a huge amount. And we have yet to, this is just 1/3 of the kitty which has been introduced so far. And if we try to take the state and the other IPPs together, probably the savings at the end of the day would be much, much higher than what is being seen at present. So what is required now is we need to change our mindset. We need to think where all we can optimize. Can I take and integrate some other resources from other places? A state may not have each kind of resources, and the potential may be different in different states. So these diversities needs to be encashed in a manner when we try to have some kind of a national optimization. And not only national, what I can further extend it to an international resources optimization, because we are already trying to harness and trying to see that we get power from Bhutan. And I think West Bengal is one of the rich beneficiary of the hydropower which is coming from Bhutan. We are hoping that we'll get some more hydros from Nepal side as well when these hydropower plants developed in Nepal. There are already some are already in the pipeline. But at present, we are exporting power to Bangladesh, Nepal, and Myanmar, and which has improved their situation as well as the situations and the conditions of our own power sector people and the stakeholders. Particularly, if I can say, West Bengal is one of them, and Tripura from the other side are supplying power to Bangladesh, which has improved the economical situation of these two states, besides other stakeholders as such. Other area where we always keep focusing is the energy efficiency part, whether it is efficient lightings, fans, air conditioners, all these equipments, the manufacturers of these equipments need to innovate, need to bring out more and more efficiency in this particular area. And we see that a lot of energy gets saved by simply introducing these small steps. One of the major challenges that the country right now faces in the distribution sector is the supply to the agriculture. And the agriculture pump sets are not efficient, which needs to be changed to the efficient pumps. We can save a lot of energy, a lot of subsidies which goes to payment of to this sector can also be optimized so that better utilization of resources can be there. This may also further try to see that other electrical equipments can also be made more efficient, and that is how I was trying to focus more on the research aspect of the industry and particularly those who are involved in these areas. We do keep on facilitating in terms of creating demand, which we got it done through the EESL, who did for the LED bulbs, fans, ACs, and even electric vehicles in the initial phases. And we'll continue to do handhold and try to do a lot of see that the volumes increases in these particular areas. Environment is another key area which is of focus in the power sector. And as I mentioned that India doesn't have any choice other than to right now depend mainly on the coal sector. So we need to make it as clean coal, and that is how to meet the environmental norms, the equipment like FGD, etc. are being installed. And it becomes the responsibility of the thermal power plants owners, equipment suppliers, FGDs suppliers, or even other pollution control equipment suppliers to supply them in time so that these can be installed as per the directions given by the Honorable Supreme Court and the Ministry of Environment and Forest. This also leads to judicious use of water by the stakeholders of the power sector, and which is also as communities. I think Mohit emphasized on the need of storage system. In fact, we are also forming a team and trying to see in what manner the energy storage system can be integrated into the grid, whether it is battery storage, it is pump storage, or it is hydrogen, or in any other manner or in the other developments that energy storage system takes us forward. Giving more leeway to the consumers, to the DISCOMs, and opportunity to only a week ago, we started with green term ahead market, which will give an opportunity to renewable power to trade electricity into this segment, and the opportunity to the obligated entities, including DISCOMs, to fulfill their renewable purchase obligations. So these are the developments which the markets in the market, and in fact, right now the kitty is quite small, and we are working on it along with all these stakeholders, so that we are able to improve this kitty in the market to a larger extent. So what is required is a coordinated approach of all these stakeholders in the power sector, whether it is generators, transmission licensees, traders, DISCOMs, all equipment manufacturers. Industry has to play a very, very major role into this element, so that all of us are able to get the benefits out of it. In fact, in the opening remark, Mr. Ray mentioned that India's commitment of 40%, basically we had committed in the Paris COP22, and our commitment was 40% of installed capacity by 2030. We have already achieved 37.5% as of now. We are only on 2020, and maybe by 2021 itself, we'll be able to achieve this particular target of having 40% installed capacity, which we were supposed to do it by 2030. But this will not stop us from further integration of renewables. We'll continue that journey and continue the efforts to further keep on integrating more and more renewable sources, so that we give a better world to our next generation. Plantation of tree, which Mr. Ray said, has shown us in the beginning, was really encouraging. And I really compliment the efforts of BCC in this particular area. And I hope that in future, you will also involve school children and others, so that it becomes a mass movement instead of taking only through the industries. With this, I close my remarks, and I wish all the success to all the stakeholders, including the industries, in the endeavor that we try to achieve inclusive growth with resource security. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. You have really covered the entire gamut of the power sector in India, as well as you have highlighted on what are the future directions, use of modern technology, automation, extensive use of information and communication technology, ICT, Internet of Things are the trying tools for automation and optimal use of energy. We are really grateful to you. Convey our special thanks to all the speakers, Mr. Prashad, Mr. Bhargav, and Mr. Ram. And with this, we are concluding this opening session. And I'm handing over to Mr. Deb A. Mukherjee for conducting the next session. Thank you. Thank you all.